morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans Review. Before we get into the video, tell me what year this top was a fan's favourite at Celtic. An old Umbro top. It is an original and it still fits. Tell me who was your favourite player. A lot of the younger ones will be like, when did that top come out? And tell me the year of the top and tell me your favourite player that played in this top back in the day. There'll be one special player that scored a lot of goals for Celtic donned this top. And let me see if you come out with that name. Anyway, let's get to one Celtic player. Yesterday, social media was awash with the fact that Kobayashi was away to join a club in Japan for 6 months. And where did the story come from? Well, it came from this article. And we'll go look at some of the headlines first when Kobayashi was going to join Celtic. Yuki Kobayashi, Celtic Japanese defender on 5-year deal. This 22-year-old left-sided centre-back who's played for Japan under 20s, has joined Celtic on a 5-year contract. And that was the 23rd of November, 2022. And player that was born in 1992. He'd never really done it at Celtic. The fact that he was signed in November 2022, you'd think that he's not really had a good game time. He was brought in to be probably ahead of Scales, let's face it. He was definitely brought in to be ahead of Scales in that position. But let's look at the publication in question. It is a Japanese publication and it's been transferred into English via Google Chrome. And it says, Kirishima to acquire Celtic centre-back Yuki Kobayashi for 6 months. So this is where the story came from. It was confirmed by the 10th that Kirishima will acquire Yuki Kobayashi, 23, from the under-22s Japan national team for the defender of the Scottish First Division Celtic. According to multiple sources, the contract expected to be for a limited period of 6 months. Kobayashi is a left-handed centre-back, stands at one. Anyway, he moved to Celtic permanently in January 2023. He was requested by the current Tottenham manager who was in charge of the team at the time. This is where the story gets really interesting. Now you're going to say it's a bad translation, but however, he has not appeared in any games, official games so far this season because he does not get along well with the new manager, Rodgers, who is rumoured to be fired. While searching for transfer, it seems the decision was made in response to love call from Kirishima, who was in urgent need of reinforcements at centre-back. So there's where the story came from. There's the story where it came from. This is the publication that it came from, Sponsy. They do a lot of obviously the stuff in Japan. So it wasn't a fake story. I mean, there's obviously been some kind of talks between Celtic and his agent and teams in Japan. So that then makes me think there has to be questions asked this afternoon. There has to be questions asked this afternoon or this morning in the press conference with the manager. And I wonder who will get rolled out for the press conference today. I wonder if it would be Liam Scales by any chance. But Brendan Rodgers needs to be asked some questions. And it has to be, obviously that story came out about Kobayashi. Is there flames without fire? Where did it come from? Does he have a future at the club? And what's basically going on? I mean, because that story came from Japan. It wouldn't come from Japan if there was no smoke without fire. Let's face it, they're not going to make up stories and stick it in a national paper or a national publication. It's not like websites that you get over here that just publish stuff. This just came through media. And it took for a UK, a Scottish-based journalist to say that the story was a nothing story and there was nothing happening with it. I did think it was a bit strange that Kobayashi, although Brendan Rodgers has been quietly dismantling some of the deadwood, people will say, out of Celtic that Ange Postecoglou brought in. But he said it's a nothing story. Well, it may be a nothing story, but it's coming out this morning and said it's not time for Celtic to get rid of that player. I thought it'd be a bit strange getting rid of another player when we're in the run into a season, considering Cameron Carter-Vickers is injured, Big Rocky's injured, and it leaves us Gustav Lagerbielke, Liam Scales, and Stephen Welsh. To say we're a bit short would be an understatement. So that's why I thought it'd be a bit strange letting Yuki Kobayashi go before the end of the season. So Brendan Rodgers needs to be questioned about the Japanese media initially reporting a loan move that was later knocked down by Scottish news media. But what is the plans going forward for that player? Another one is he needs to be asked about what is actually going on with our injured players. And Celtic this season, and it was the same under Ange Postecoglou, they were a bit reluctant to give any kind of information away about the players and timelines and the actual what's going on with the injuries. I mean, Rio Hatate's been out since God knows when. He's hardly kicked the ball this season. He did go away to the Asia Cup, and he came back injured with both calves. And since then, we've heard nothing. We've heard the fact that he might be coming back. He could be available for the Livingston match following the international break. So that's another 3 weeks away yet. I mean, we've still got the game this weekend, and then we've got the international break, and then we've got the game at the end of the month. So there's a couple of weeks away yet. And during that time, Brendan won't need to answer to the press because there'll be no press interviews. So the questions have to be answered and asked today by Celtic fan media more than anything, because they're the ones that are meant to be acting on the behalf of our Celtic fans, our glorious fans that we are. And it needs to be asked about Rio Hatate. What is going on with Rio Hatate? What is the timeline and the reality of him coming back and getting into the squad, getting into the first team? Because let's face it, there's players that have been in the first team just now, in and around in the same position as him. I mean, is he going to be of a decent fitness level and match fitness to be able to come in and make an impact before the end of the season? And then talking about players that could be potentially out to the end of the season, social media has been awash with the fact that Callum McGregor is going to be out to the end of the season. And Celtic have been a bit shady about what is actually wrong with Callum and his injury. Fans need to know what is going on with him, and need to give us a little bit of timeline. Maybe I can understand Brendan Rodgers wanting to keep things in-house and keep things a secret so that it doesn't give opposing teams an insight into what team we're going to play. But let's face it, without Callum McGregor, we've been absolutely pish, absolutely wash. Is it the fact that he's going to come back after the international break, or is he out for the season? And what is the extent of his injury? I mean, Brendan Rodgers has said this is the type of injury that Callum kind of gets towards the end of every season, but it's a bit worse this year. Anyway, tell me what you think about it all in the comment section, as you generally do. Now, another two questions that Brendan Rodgers really needs to be asked about players and international breaks, etc., is obviously the Cameron Carter-Vickers one, but also the Lewis Palmer. What's the extent of his injury since the Honduran FA actually put out a tweet saying that Lewis Palmer will not be travelling because Celtic have said that he's not fit enough to play for the international. So what is the update with Lewis Palmer also? And Cameron Carter-Vickers, what is the extent of his injury, and is it something that could potentially rule him out for future games? I mean, it's a couple of times this season that he's pulled up with his hamstring and he's been left out to rest for a couple of weeks, which has kind of been during games where we haven't played as well. And you could say that the first team, we're either going to get to the end of the season and we're going to win a double, and we're going to say, yes, we've won a double. But then we're also going to look back and go, what went wrong? There needs to be serious questions about what went wrong this season. And there has to be questions asked. And Brendan Rodgers and Nicholson, if you ask me, Brendan Rodgers did say at the start of this season, come back and talk to me on the front doorstep of Celtic Park at the end of May. We have a game at the end of May that Brendan Rodgers will be there, I should hope. The Legends game. And if we win anything, this will be the game that both trophies or nothing will be paraded to the fans. And Brendan Rodgers has to come onto the microphone and speak to the fans in the middle of the pitch, either during half time, before the game, or after it. It has to be done. We have to know what went wrong this season. But we'll know what went wrong, but the injuries and everything, the consistent injuries that we've had this season has been unbelievable. I mean, when you think back to the start of the season and the amount of players we had out injured, you're thinking, right, we've got over the bad spell. You always get a bad spell in a season where there's players out injured, and you're thinking, right, that's maybe out the way. That's out the way for the whole season. But it's not been the case this year. It hasn't been the case. And there's been a lot of players off form. People are saying it's the Brendan Rodgers effect, and people aren't adhering to the way that Brendan Rodgers wants to play. Brendan Rodgers' formation is 4-3-3, just like the previous manager. Anyway, let's hope we get some information from Celtic today. In the media conference, there will be a video later on this afternoon where we go over the press conference that Celtic will release, and obviously we won't get to see what the print media get to ask, but we'll get the version that Celtic will put out. And on that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world.
Lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party.